This video is going to be about using harnesses. There is this constant war on the internet at the moment between dog trainers, and every now and again I get a little bit triggered when I see something that is just scientifically and factually incorrect. One of the things that I see a lot of is that big strong dogs can't be walked in a harness, and I'd like to just clarify something. I have big strong dogs. I've had several big strong dogs, and you can walk any dog in a harness. If you have a dog that is so strong that you're worried they're going to pull you over and you're not going to have control, and your only recourse is to use something that is going to cause extreme pain for the dog, like a prong collar, or as we call them here, a spike collar, or if you opt for a no-pull harness, then your training is flawed, because you can train a big strong dog to actually listen to you so that they don't pull you over. And that is the simple difference between using pain to train and actually using effective methods to train. So yes, if you stick a prong collar onto a big strong dog and he pulls, he's going to feel pain and he's going to stop pulling. It works. 100% agree with you. I can't argue with the fact that it works. Same for the no-pull harnesses. You know, it's got a little string, and as the dog pulls forward, it goes under their arms and it causes quite a lot of discomfort. I wouldn't say it's extreme pain, but it's definitely discomfort. And I've used them. I actually use a lot of these things that come out because I'd like to see what I feel about them before I comment on them. And I would like to say that I have not used a spike collar on a dog. I don't see what I'd have to figure out about that, and I've never used a shock collar. But other than that, I have tried head halters, I have tried no-pull harnesses, I've tried slip leads, martingales, half chokes, a dead choke. I've done lots of things. I've been training dogs for a very long time, and I still would prefer to use a harness. And I'd prefer to use a harness for a number of reasons. One of them being comfort to the dog. The other one being that I actually think they're more like secure from a point of view of a dog getting out, besides maybe a slip lead, which is what I would use if I had a dog that I really didn't know, or as a backup if I was taking a dog out somewhere for the first few times and the dog wasn't effectively trained, because a slip lead would obviously close and the dog would be physically unable to get away from me, which would be a safety concern. But I certainly wouldn't use it as a training tool, and there's a very big difference there. So I use a slip lead to say when I'm grooming my dogs, if I'm giving them a wash and I want them to stay with me, I will use that. They don't fight me. But if it's easy to dry, basically, so you know, you can't really wash your dog when they're wearing a harness. Trust me, we have tried. And some dogs are not going to stand still while you bath them, and sometimes they have to be bathed. If they're covered in monkey poo and they're going to go and jump on the bed, then yes, they're getting a bath whether they like it or not. I'm sorry for the force-free people out there, but there's also real life that has to happen. So my point is basically that harness is totally an effective training tool. It doesn't teach dogs to pull. It doesn't make them uncontrollable. It doesn't render you helpless if your dog is going to run off. If your dog is really that determined to run off and your training is really that flawed, then they will run off with a prong collar regardless. I've actually seen physically myself, maybe 25 years ago now, I had a lady come to my training school with a bull terrier who was very aggressive, and she had him in a prong collar, and he actually lunged at another dog. It was a little terrier type thing, and it lunged at this dog, and the collar actually snapped. The prong collar actually broke. So it just goes to show that the pain in that particular case, the pain reflex was not strong enough to override the dog's actual desire to attack another dog, which we luckily were able to stop. But the point I'm making is that the dog did what he wanted to do regardless, because he hadn't been trained, and he had the limited training that it had was ineffective. So the problem is that people are unwilling to put the time into proper training, unwilling to actually put the hours into it, and therefore will opt to use a tool that is going to be immediately effective, whether it causes pain or not. So that is my stance on it. I have a big dog that has got quite severe anti-human feelings. I walk him on a harness. He listens to me perfectly well. Has he pulled me over? Yes, he did once while I was actually filming a video on recalls and I slipped on very wet grass and it was very funny. And did it happen because of my own bad planning? Yes. Would it happen now that he's had more training and he knows not to pull and yank and I can control him? No. So what is our story here? Our story here is that a harness is completely effective and a useful training tool and a lot kinder than using something that causes pain. And I really want to keep bringing up the kindness thing, is why do we feel it's okay to want to hurt our animals just so that we can have the desired outcome? So that all said, these harnesses are my favorite type. They have a nice underbelly, which is nice and comfortable. They have a clip at the bottom, so this would be on the dog's neck. They have a clip on the top part, so you can put your lead here. You can also attach another lead, should you need to, on this side, if you need a little bit extra control, with maybe if you're training or something and you just want to be more careful. And it's got quite good clips. They're quite strong. These are quite strong harnesses. I've tested them quite a lot. I would suggest that you find a harness that is definitely not going to hinder shoulder movement, that is going to be comfortable for your dog, and that works with your dog. In cases where you can't use a harness for whatever reason and you are determined to use a collar, then pick a flat collar, which is going to do the least damage to the trachea of the dog and the neck. So neck damage with dogs that are trained with harsh collars is something that's not terribly overly studied, and one has to ask how many dogs are developing back and spinal and hip problems due to being yanked around on their necks as well, because I would imagine that it is quite a high number, and I'm sure that the physiotherapists and chiropractors will have a lot to say about that in the future. So pick a harness and do your training instead of picking a tool that is cruel.